Continuous praise to the Most High God, King of heaven and earth, even the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Israel. To him and to him alone are all due praises. We thank you all for joining us this evening. Brothers and sisters, we are Congregation ShomrayHabreet, and we are the keepers of the covenant. This night, for our Torah study, we have a topic that is very near and dear to all of us. And the Torah study topic this week will be priests, ministers, and men of God. And as we discuss this topic, we're going to talk about what we expect from our priests. We're going to talk about what we expect from our ministers. We're going to talk about what we expect from our men of God. And we're going to talk about, once they give us what we need, what we do with it. This will be a very special topic this night, brothers and sisters. I'm sure everybody's going to enjoy this one. So as always, before we get started with our discussion, we're going to say a prayer. So I'm going to ask everyone to please rise and face the east. Hallelujah. We give honor and praise unto you, Yah, God of the heavens, the God of our forefathers, even the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Israel. Yahweh God, as we come before you this day for our Torah study, we acknowledge, Yahweh God, the beginning of the Shabbat day. We acknowledge, God, that this is the day that you call to be holy, Yom HaShvi'i, the seventh day of the week. We acknowledge, Yahweh God, that there's none like you in all the world. We acknowledge, Yahweh God, that within your Shabbat day, there comes covenant. That within your Sabbath day, Yahweh God, there comes peace. That within your Sabbath day, Yahweh God, there becomes an obligation for the children of Israel to live in a way that is right and good before you. Therefore, as we open up our books this day, therefore, as we turn our page this day, therefore, this day, as we consider your word, we ask, Yahweh God, that you bless us in such a way that we would hear the word, that we would be receptive to the word, that we would apply the word, and that we may never forget the word. That Yahweh God, you will bless us in such a way that we would be better today than we were yesterday. That we would understand that much more about your laws, statutes, commandments, and judgments. That we would understand how to walk before you and be found acceptable before you. And that Yahweh God, you will rain down your blessings from heaven, and we might understand that there's none like you in all the world. We call upon you because we realize that you are God and God alone, and that beside you there is no other. Asking this day, Yahweh God, you cause us to understand a little bit more about your priests, that Yahweh God, you would cause us to understand a little bit more about your ministers, and that you would cause us to understand a little bit more about your men of God, and that as we come closer, that Yahweh God, you would be that much more closer to redeeming us as a nation. All glory, all honor, and all praises unto your name now forevermore. Hallelujah. Well, amen. Everyone, please be seated. Continuous praise to the Most High God, King of heaven and earth, even the God of our forefathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Yitzchak, and the God of Israel. To him and to him alone are all due praises. Once again, I greet you all in the tongue of our forefathers. Shabbat Shalom Lakem. Praying that everyone is having a blessed evening. We thank everyone for joining us this evening, even for this special topic. We ask that the Most High God might open our hearts and enlighten us to who he is and the way that we should serve him. Okay, so let's start our topic. Subtopic number 1. What is the role of God's priest? Now, there's much ado about this, right? The children of Israel have been complaining about what the priest is and what he does probably since our inception as a nation. if we remember in Leviticus 19, there were already priests set up before there was an established priesthood, before the Most High God called out the Levites. There was actually a priesthood that was acting, that was moving on, and we're going to actually go there now so we can understand a little bit more about what these priests were doing. We're going to go to the book of Leviticus. We're going to go to chapter 19, and we're going to be reading for a minute, but I want y'all to bear with me. Hallelujah. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, and say unto them, Ye shall be holy, for I, Yahweh, your God, am holy. Ye shall fear every man his mother and his father, and ye shall keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh, your God. Turn ye not unto the idols, nor make to yourselves molten gods. I am Yahweh, your God. And when you offer a sacrifice of peace offerings unto Yahweh, ye shall offer it, that ye may be accepted. Now, this is important, because when we look at what's going on here, God is telling us that when we bring a sacrifice of peace offerings, that means we already had a mindset of what offerings were and what we should be doing with them, right? And when you offer a sacrifice of peace offerings unto Yahweh, you shall offer it, that ye may be accepted. One is teaching us that there is a protocol. There is a certain way that the offering has to be bought. And if it's not bought the correct way, then it won't be accepted. Why do we say that? This has been a common theme since the beginning of our history, since the beginning of the history of the world as we know it. If we remember Cain, if we remember Abel, with Cain and Abel, both of them brought offerings to God. One brought an offering, the other brought the offering of his first fruits. And when he brought the offering of his first fruits, brothers and sisters, that offering was accepted, but the other offering wasn't accepted. What is that teaching us? That is teaching us that no matter what we think we want to bring to God, no matter how we think it should be accepted, just because we bring it to God, that doesn't mean that God wants it. Just because we bring it to God, that doesn't make it acceptable. And so, when we talk about the role of God's priests, there needs to be somebody who teaches us what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Now, I want us to consider this here. You need somebody to tell you what's okay and what's not okay. And a lot of times, we get on our high horse. We're walking around, it's like, I don't need nobody to tell me nothing. I can read for myself. But there's a reality, brothers and sisters. There's an absolute reality that God wanted people to teach us in a certain way. And therefore, the priest is here. And I'm going to show it to us in a little while as we talk about the role of God's priest, because it extends a little bit beyond offerings. But offerings is a prime example. You can't do offerings wrong, and when you do them wrong, God won't accept them. But let's go to verse 6. And so it says, you're gonna have to scroll down a little bit more so it's not covering the logo. And so it says, it shall be eaten the same day. Hold on, let me bring this down. Okay. And in verse 6 it reads, it shall be eaten the same day ye offer it, and on the morrow. And if aught remain until the third day, it shall be burnt with fire. And if it be eaten at all on the third day, it is a vile thing, it shall not be accepted. Now, If you heard my lesson last week, I talked about how leftovers is not always a good thing, right? Sometimes we think leftovers, yes, okay, this, that, and another, but God doesn't want his peace offering eaten. You can't even eat it at all on the third day. It's a vile thing. He won't accept any part of the offering if we deal with it in a certain way. Well, how do we know these things? How do we deal with it? It reads in verse 8, but everyone that eateth it shall bear his iniquity, because he has profaned the holy thing of Yahweh, and that soul shall be cut off from his people. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather the fallen fruit of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and for the stranger. I am Yahweh your God. Ye shall not steal, neither shall ye deal falsely, nor lie one to another. And ye shall not swear by my name falsely, so that thou profane the name of thy God. I am Yahweh. Thou shalt not oppress thy neighbor, nor rob him. Okay. Give me 1 second, because I said Leviticus 19 and I actually meant to say Exodus 19. All right. I knew something was wrong. I was like, wait a minute. Leviticus 19:11. I know that verse. So we'll get that together over there. And so what I want us to understand is that, you know, about the offerings and the different things that we do, that there's a way to do all of these different things. Exodus 19:1, we can start from right there. It says, in the third month after the children of Israel were going forth out of the land of Egypt, the same day came they into the wilderness of Sinai, and they were departed from Refuge and were come to the wilderness of Sinai. They encamped in the wilderness, and there Israel encamped before the mount. And Moses went up unto God, and the Lord called him out of the mountain, saying, thou shalt say to the house of Yaakov, and tell the children of Israel, ye have seen what I did unto the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and brought you unto myself. Now therefore, if you hearken unto me my voice indeed, and keep my covenant, then ye shall be my own treasure from among all peoples, for all the earth is mine. And ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. Now I want to focus on that for a second. Why would the world need a kingdom of priests? And if you know the role of the priest, why would the rest of the world need what you need? Why would the rest of the world look to say, why would God say, this is the type of nation you are supposed to be to me? A kingdom of priests, a holy nation. He told Moses, if we read at the end of 6, he told Moses, these are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. That means that God already had a definition. There was already an impression of what a priest would be, and that by the time Moses gave these words to everybody else, the men as well as the women. And I'm not trying to say they are female priests. I'm talking about roles that we play. That we would have to understand what our priests want, where they come from, and how they are supposed to act. Righteous expectations. It says in verse 7, and Moses came and called for the elders of the people, and set before them all these words which Yahweh had commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that Yahweh has spoken, we will do. And Moshe reported the words of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, lo, I come unto thee in a thick cloud, that the people may hear when I speak with thee, and may also believe thee forever. And Moshe told the word of the people unto Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto Moshe, go unto the people and sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments and be ready against the third day. For the third day Yahweh will come down in the sight of all the people upon Mount Sinai. Now, before we get to the part where we talk about how there were priests there was also an understanding of the priests. there was also an understanding of the people that before you approach God, you had to be clean. Go and wash your garments. Sanctify the people today, sanctify the people tomorrow, and wash their garments and be ready against the third day. What is that? When you sanctify yourself and when you think about the priest being sanctified, is your sanctification the same as the priest's sanctification? The answer to that question should be no. You expect the priest to be a little bit more diligent when it comes to him being sanctified before God because of the role that he plays. If you come in to teach me, you should know a little bit more than me so that when it comes down to you teaching me, I can actually absorb information. I can take something in. What happens when other people are not up to par, but they're playing the role? I'm telling us this because we actually can make the priest believe that he's not as special as he actually is. And I want us to think about that. I want us to consider that. Because there's a lot of time in Israel where we go, ain't no priest, ain't no minister. We don't know who that person is. And the people who are in those roles and taking on those roles, we downplay them and we say, they're no real priest or they're no real minister. So who is your real minister and where can they be found? Who is your real priest and where can he be found? When you see him, how will you deal with him? And if he's not playing the role that he's supposed to play, who's going to teach him to do that which is right? See, I'm telling you something here. Sometimes you have to be close in knowledge to the priest so you understand when the priest is messing up. You have to be close in knowledge to the priest so that when he is telling you something, you can point out to him in the scriptures where he may be doing something wrong. That's what we call ironing, sharpening iron. Can the priest help you? Can the priest correct you? Does the priest need help and does he need to be corrected? Are there good priests? Are there bad priests? We like that one, don't we? We like that one. We can jump and we're like, yes, absolutely. That's it, Moray. That's what I've been waiting to hear. There are bad priests. Okay, but where are your good priests? Ain't no good priests. It's impossible. Why? Because when you get yourself dirty, that is the time to sanctify yourself. Let me say that one more time. When you get yourself dirty, that is the time to sanctify yourself. That's the time to get yourself clean before God. That's the time when you should be seeking out the priest to ask about your dirty ways. How many people are still caught up on my business? My business this and my business that. You might be right. It might be your business. But this is what I'm going to tell you. Even if it is your business, even if you are doing things that you feel is just you, who's there to help you if not God's priest? But let's read a little bit more. Verse 12. And thou shalt set bounds unto the people round about, saying, take heed to yourselves that ye not go up into the mount, or touch the border of it. Whosoever touch the mount shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through, whether it be beast or man, it shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds long, they shall come up to the mount. And Moses went down from the mount unto the people, and sanctified the people, and they washed their garments. He said unto the people, he said unto the people, be ready against the third day. Come not near a woman. And it came to pass on the third day, when it was morning, that there were thunderings and lightnings and thick cloud upon the mount, and the voice of the horn exceeding loud, and all the people that were in the camp trembled. And Moshe brought forth the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the nether part of the mount. Now Mount Sinai was altogether on smoke, because Jehovah descended upon it in fire, and the smoke thereof ascended as the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mount quaked greatly. And when the voice of the horn waxed louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him by a voice. And the Lord came down upon Mount Sinai to the top of the mount, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mount, and Moses went up. And the Lord said unto Moses, go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto Jehovah to gaze, and many of them perish. Key point, brothers and sisters, verse 22. And let the priests also that come near to Jehovah sanctify themselves, lest the Lord break forth upon them. Now, I want you to highlight that verse. I want you to put an asterisk next to that verse. I want you to write down Exodus 19, verse 22. Before God called the priests, he said, Wayomer Moshe, Wegam HaKohanim, Hanigashin El Yehovah, and also the priests that draw near to the Lord, right? Those ones, tell them to sanctify themselves. Well, this seems a little confusing. God told the people to sanctify themselves before they came, and now he's telling Moses, and he told Moses, create a border. He told Moses, go down there and tell them, don't pass the border, lest I break forth and kill them. But Moses just got finished doing that. Now, God is telling him to tell the priests, he's telling him to go and talk to the priests and tell them, sanctify yourselves. Wait a minute. I thought we just had to spend 2 days sanctifying ourselves against the third day. Why is God telling the priests to sanctify themselves again? Or is there a special role that they have there? Is there something going on here that the people didn't quite understand what to do? And I'm going to harp on this point for a little while, because I'm like, we knew that there were priests there. God accepted certain priests before a Levitical priesthood took place, and they had expectations. Now, I see a Coach Yakia's comment, extra precaution. But I'm going to tell you this. Either you're sanctified or you're not. But guess what? And we'll read about it. When you come into the tent of meeting, what was there? There was a laver. What was there? There was water. The priest had to wash. You always had to have a sense of being clean. And not just a sense, but you had to be clean. You had to be sanctified. So part of the role of God's priest is to make sure that he is prepared. What is the role of God's priest? To make sure he's prepared. But prepared with what? Oh, I'll tell you the first one. Knowledge. Prepared with what, Moray? sanctification, making sure that he's clean. What else is something that the priest can be prepared for? What is the role of God's priest? Be prepared for the unexpected. Did we get that? Knowledge, sanctification, and being prepared for the unexpected. If you're going to be a priest, you have to have knowledge of who God is and what is acceptable and unacceptable before him. If you're going to be God's priest, you have to have the knowledge of clean and unclean. And not only do you have to have the knowledge of clean and unclean, how you get yourself clean and unclean, but you also have to have the knowledge of the people around you to ensure that they are clean or if they're clean or if they're unclean. God's priests are supposed to be able to condemn the wicked and justify the righteous. And of course, in our book, the way we read it is justify the righteous and condemn the wicked. That's the role of God's priests. When you look for a priest, is that what you look for? See, we're going to do something tonight. I'm going to show us how we think. When you see God's priests, is that what you look for? Do you look for somebody knowledgeable? Do you look for somebody who is sanctified? Do you look for somebody who is prepared for the unexpected? Do you look for somebody who will give spiritual direction? He's also a judge. I can agree with that. Can be a judge. The city of Refuge. Do you remember about the city of Refuge? Occult Leviah says, and Shabbat Shalom to you, sis, we are called to walk discreetly. That is walking in wisdom and knowledge as to not desecrate the house. The priest, even more so. The priest has a high level of expectation. He should understand that what he has to do always has to be on point because he's that much closer to God. The priest has an expectation more so that he can't even marry a certain type of woman. He can't marry a profaned woman. And we're still not ready to define what that profaned woman is. But God had an expectation of it. Profane woman? No, not for you, priest. There's a way I want you to live. There's certain things that I want for you to do. So we're talking about priests here. Exodus 19:22. I told you to highlight it, put an asterisk next to it, all that other stuff. Who are these priests? Somebody tell me. Who were these priests? Anybody know? Does anybody know who these priests are and where they came from? Sons of Aaron? I think it was some of the sons of Aaron. Who else? Well, listen. Descendants of Aaron. Some of them. We don't think it was anybody else? The children of Israel was killing a whole bunch of lambs in Egypt. You think Moses went from door to door to teach everybody how to kill the Paschal lamb? See the Bahadon? This is before the children of Israel made the lamb. So I want us to remember about the Levitical priesthood. The Levitical priesthood came so after the children, it's funny. Aaron made the golden calf, and after the calf was ground up and Moses made the people drink it, he asked, who's on the side of the Lord? All the Levites banded together with their brother, and they went throughout the camp, and then God blessed that tribe. So at the same time they was at their low point, they actually ascended to a high point. You can always make your way back with God. Let me retract that, because I know there's some people about ready to come for me. You can mess up really bad and you can make your way back to God. I'm going to say it that way. All right? So who are these priests? These priests, the way offerings went in antiquity, usually it was the elder male of the household. The elder male of the household usually did the offerings. So you could have somebody from the tribe of Reuben doing offerings, some people from the tribe of Asher, some people from the tribe of Gad, some people from the tribe of Benjamin. It didn't matter. Long was that elder person of the household or who they felt was responsible, right? And so when you get to that point, we have to understand that there were people who were at the mount who were doing things in the name of God. Do you remember the 70 elders? There were 70 elders who went and feasted with Moses. And they said the look of what was under the Most High God's feet was like the look of sapphire. Right? So as that's happening, brothers and sisters, as that's happening, people are actually preparing themselves to live a certain way before God. Okay, I got to keep myself clean. I'm the priest of the household. I have certain things I need to do. Subtopic number 2. Because I'm going to show us right now, there's a lot of things we expect from our priest, and we actually expect our priest to do more than we would be willing to do. I'm going to show you why. And so subtopic number 2 is counselor, guide, therapist, or minister. If y'all know, I didn't put a period, I didn't put an exclamation point, but I put a question mark. Why did I do that? When you look at your priest, everything that I was talking about had to do with them doing things for God, them facilitating the things that God needs, the things that God wants, the things that he needs from us, and that he wants, he desires for us to fulfill. So how does counselor come in there? Now, Colt Levia's out here making jokes. She's like, all of that? If you can get a counselor, a guide, a therapist, and a minister all in one person, God bless you, sister. You got it. So we see a Koyakia says, which one does the priest fall under? Well, that's depending on the person. Priest Yiye. I've been helping people most of my life. But how have you been helping? Should I be able to go to the priest and get counsel on him on life? Should I be able to do that? And should he make himself available? Should I be able to go to the priest and ask him for guidance on how I'm moving forward spiritually? Right? When we look at our scriptures, and I know I did a lot of focus on priests, but I did priests, ministers, and men of God, because sometimes the prophet does not have to come from the tribe of Levi. Sometimes the prophet, he can give us guidance also, can't he? And a lot of times when we're listening to the prophet, he kind of sounds like the priest. Is that right or is that wrong? Right? The prophet is coming, and we have, 3 major prophets, 12 minor prophets that we see in our book. And the prophet, I want us to think about this here now. The prophet and the prophetess can not only not be of the tribe of Levi, but when we read the book of Isaiah, we get constant things about spirituality and the guidance we need of how to move forward or to stop doing what we're doing. Right? In fact, prophet can be a convert. The prophet is whoever God chooses, man, woman, or child. We've seen all 3. Samuel was the young prophet. Miriam was the prophetess. Deborah was the prophetess. And I could go on about the male prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, to name 3. And so I want us to remember this. Because sometimes your counselor may need counseling. And we don't like to talk about that. Sometimes your guide may need guidance. Sometimes the therapist needs some therapy. The minister needs some ministering too. Somebody needs to minister to that person. Somebody needs to counsel that person. Somebody needs to tell that brother he needs some therapy too. You don't have to be a priest to be a therapist, but your priest should have a little bit of insight of where to point people in the right direction. See, sometimes we're looking for everything in one fell swoop, right? Sometimes we're looking for one person to be that ultimate sage, like how Moses was, where he sat down and all the people came before him and he explained to them the laws of God. But here's the reality. Even Moses needed a break, right? Who was Moses' counselor? Who was Moses' guide? Who was Moses' therapist? Who ministered to Moses? His father-in-law, who was a Midian, who we warred with, that nation of Midian that he warred with, he had to give Moses advice. Right? Aaron, Miriam, God had to intervene. Sometimes God is your counselor. Sometimes God will appear to you. And he may not appear to you directly and speak to you mouth to mouth, but he will show you through the way of things that are happening to you in your life. That as those things happen, and as things keep happening to you, that you're doing things in an improper manner. Aaron and Miriam spoke about their brother Moses. And what happened? God had to call them out. God had to plead with them. If there be a prophet amongst you, I speak to him in a dream, on a vision. And I'm paraphrasing. What did he say? Not so my prophet Moses. So I ask you this, counselor, guide, therapist, or minister. Let me add one more in there. Are we looking for an intercessor? Sometimes we don't like that word intercessor, but that word intercessor is very much in our scriptures. Do we need an intercessor? Do we need a soul or souls that will pray on our behalf? How do you feel about people praying for you? People jump out, yeah, pray for me, this, that, and another. How do you feel about people praying for your sins? Skirt! All right, Moray. Slow down, Moray. Let's not speed, Moray. I liked you in the beginning, but I don't want to start hearing about somebody praying for my sins. Right? But what happens is when you're willing to confess your sins, when you have yourself in a position where you want God to know if the person is a true priest, like how you believe, that man should be what? A confidant. That man should be somebody that you could talk to, and that as you talk to that person, you know that he is not going to tell all of your secrets. You know he is not going to prejudge you, even though he may judge you. Let me say that one more time. You know that he's not going to prejudge you, even though he's going to judge you. How many of us don't like that? Like, wait a second. Hold on. Pump the brakes. I gotta let him do what? Well, guess what? You want your sin to be private, but your sin offering can't be. Let me say that one more time. You want your sin to be private, but your sin offering cannot be. Your sin offering is the very thing that you got to bring up before the Most High God. And he has to make a determination whether your sin offering is acceptable or not. The same way how we read in Leviticus 19 about if the peace offering will be acceptable. These are all things that the priest has to do. The priest has to make a determination and look at you and determine if you are worthy of coming into the place of worship. Did we ever think about that? The priest has to go over the animal, make sure there's no blemish, things of that nature before it goes up on the altar. But did you ever think about how the priest has to look at you and make sure you are acceptable as you bring up your offering? Admit it. Not really, Moray. Because I'm grown and this, that, and another. But listen, this criteria for the Pesach. We're coming up on Passover, right? What's the criteria for all males in order to partake of the Passover offering? They got to be circumcised. That's the way you find yourself within the guidelines of being able to partake of the Passover offering. Not just you, but the stranger also. He needs to be circumcised. Right? All of these things are here. And, that's where we come to where people have information. It's like, I just want to let you know, I'm not circumcised. All right. I don't really know what to do because I'm scared. I understand that you're scared. It's been a while, and for whatever reason, your parents didn't do it the time that it was supposed to be done in. But you do know you have to get yourself circumcised in order to be a part of the covenant. Not just to eat the Passover, but to be part of God's covenant. Genesis 17 speaks to us of that. Genesis 17 speaks about the covenant of the flesh of all males, removing the foreskin. How is it, and this is what I'm going to tell you, we're going to bring it right on home. How is it that you can have a husband, sisters, that you know is not circumcised, and you're okay with him continuing to be uncircumcised, and y'all are supposed to be in the covenant of God? Right? Those type of things happen. you know, I need to talk to you about something, but I don't know how to talk to you about it. Or what is that? My husband's not circumcised and I can't convince him. Those type of things happen, right? How can you be excluded out of the covenant if your privy parts are crushed or maimed, right? This is what happened. I don't really want a lot of people to know, but should I still be coming to service because this is what happened to me? Do we understand what I'm talking about here? There are people who have real situations, who have real questions, who really want to know how to get closer to God, and they don't know what to do, and they don't know who to confide in. What do you do? But I tell you who we are. We're big gossipers. The rumorville is A1 for us. Shabbat Shalom, Kokawa. The rumorville is A1 for us. Because we can't hold the secret. Like us holding the secret is like us trying to hold sand in our hand. Somehow a little bit of it always keeps seeping out. By the time it stops seeping out our hand, most of the secret is gone. We want to confide in the priest our deepest, darkest secrets, and we don't want to be held accountable at the same time by him. Why not? We want the priest to give us sound advice on what's going on in our head concerning righteousness, why we can't get it right, why we continue to do things wrong, why we continue to engage in relationships that we shouldn't be engaged in. And at the same time, we want him to keep it between me and you. And don't tell nobody. And allow me to keep doing what I'm doing until I finally get it right. You know, one of my toughest jobs is listening to somebody say, I don't think I'm supposed to be with my spouse anymore, but I don't know what to do. And the first thing I ask is, why do you say you shouldn't be with them anymore? People have a lot of things. There's a lot of things that they go through. I slept with somebody else. I don't believe that the second child is his, and I don't know what to do now. What do you do with that? How do you handle that? See, I say like the social media crowd, they like, ooh, yes, this is a nighttime soap opera. But these are people's lives. The priest is responsible for holding people's souls in his hand and handling it delicately till he can hand it back. Should I say that one more time? The priest is responsible for holding people's souls in the palm of his hand and then delicately handing it back. Of course he's a counselor. Of course he's a guide. Of course he's a therapist. Of course he's a minister. But you're going to have to understand that he can't always be that to you because he has to be that to somebody else also. You're going to have to understand that if you put too much in his hands will eventually get weak. They may drop while your soul is in it. You may have to understand that by asking him too much, he may in turn break. And we never think about that. You can actually give the priest too much, he can break. And when that happens, what do? We cry. We go, oh, that was a good man. He tried. So wait a second. You gave him too much. You were being selfish because you wanted him to be a counselor. You wanted him to be a guide. You leaned on him heavy. You put so much pressure on that tree, you didn't realize that the tree was leaning. You didn't realize that you was putting so much pressure on that tree that the branches were breaking, that the roots were coming up out the soil. And so you were looking for a teacher and you got that. And you were looking for somebody to inspire you and you got that. You were looking for somebody to bring up the offerings for you and you got that. And you were looking for somebody to intercede for you so that you can be forgiven by God and you got that. You were looking for somebody who would be your guardian, your protector, your covering concerning spirituality, and you got that, but you never asked yourself, what did you give in return? You never asked yourself that question. What did you give in return? And I tell you this, how we deal with our own people. You'll go outside and pay another nation top dollar to counsel you. You'll pay another person top dollar to have a master class and let them be your guide. You'll pay somebody top dollar to be your therapist, knowing you can only have a couple of sessions because it costs way too much for what they have. But when it comes to your own people, nah. You just pull. And that's not good. You find yourself in a space, brothers and sisters, where you only want half of their counseling, half of their guidance, half of their therapy. And then you question who they are. And I'm going to prove it to you right now. How many times did we listen to the prophets? Just answer me that. Riddle me that. How many times did we listen to the prophets? All the time. You see, I bring up Jeremiah often, right? God didn't tell you that. God didn't say that. Where did we get this from? How does it happen? And I want us to understand that we make each other work 10 times harder than the stranger. Why? Why is it? And I want us to take a second to think about it and answer that question. Why do we make each other work 10 times harder, especially when it comes to God? Loyalty. If somebody counsels you and they give you good counsel, if you didn't pay them, do you think you at least owe them a little bit of loyalty? Or is it just like, well, that's what they decided to give me and, that's a good thing. If somebody sits down and they guide you to getting you to the next point in life that you were trying to get to. Not to your final point, but the next point in life that you get to. Do you think you owe them a little bit of loyalty? A little bit of thanks? A little bit of, that G word, not God, but do you owe them a little bit of gratitude? There's a role that this plays. If your expectation is going to be high of the priest, his expectation of you should be high also, that he knows that what he gives is going to be reciprocated. We need our Levites, trust me. And I'm going to prove it to each and every one of you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. when we have our service. We need our Levites. Not just one. We need our Levites. We need that type of tribe. We need men who are going to step up and call themselves Levites once again. We need a priest. We need people with us that are going to guide us in such a way that we will be constantly looking toward God. If we're a light unto the nations, what is the priest unto us? If we're a light unto the nations, and God told us to be a kingdom of priests, what are our priests to us? Because we got to be better than the rest of the nations, so then that means that our priest has to be better than us. Do you find yourself in that space? And if you don't find yourself in that space, are you trying to get yourself in that space? I use the word minister because a lot of times, you know what we want? We want a good, inspiring message on the Sabbath day. God's minister, right? The 103rd Psalm talks about God's minister, right? Let's turn to that for a moment. I believe it's the 103rd Psalm. It may be around verse 19. But what's going on there, and what we see there, and what we see happening is, with God's minister, there comes responsibility. We know we want a lot from him, but we don't exactly understand how it all works. Okay, so what is it? Verse 21, but I'll start from verse 20. The 103rd Psalm, beginning the 20th verse, hallelujah. Bless Yahweh, ye angels of his, ye mighty in strength that fulfill his word, hearkening unto the voice of his word. Bless Yahweh, all ye his hosts, ye ministers of his that do his pleasure. Are you God's minister? Do you still think ministering is only sold to the Levites? Don't forget about Joshua. Joshua stayed in the tent of meeting, and Joshua was not a Levite, but he stayed close there. Why? Because he believed in Moses, and most of all, he believed in God. And I agree with you, Ema. We do need a priesthood. We need a Kohanim office. We need people who are going to act in that role. And we need for them to be trained, right? And so, as we take a second to talk about spirituality, we need those people who are going to teach us about spirituality, Who is it? Who's going to teach us about our spirit and how to control it? Who's going to teach us about our spirit? And when our spirit starts to go astray, your spirit can go astray, Don't forget about that. Don't let that leave you. Your spirit can begin to go astray. And the way your spirit begins to go astray is because you haven't maintained it. You haven't put a hedge around it. You haven't put a flaming sword around it. The way God protected the tree of life in the Garden of Eden so that people couldn't get there, you need to learn how to put a proverbial angel kettle with a flaming sword around your spirit so nobody can interrupt it. You're going to have to learn how to do that. We are going to have to learn how to do that. Do you know that the priest can't always be your counselor? And if the priest is not your counselor, you're going to have to fall back on what he told you previously. You're going to have to memorize it. You're going to have to commit his words to memory. Do you know that your priest can't always be your guide? He can't always be the one to stand right next to you and say, no, this is the thing to do right now. He can't always be your guide. Your priest can't always be your therapist. You won't be able to call him and be like, hey, listen, come, let's sit down. Let's have a cup of tea and let's discuss what's really on your mind. The priest won't always be able to do that. And so what do you do when that person's no longer there? What do we do? What's the first thing we do? I'm going to tell you what the first thing we do is. The first thing we do is we cry. And when I say cry, like we cry out, we complain, we cry. Oh, they don't make them like Maury Mishael no more. Right? Or we get upset. Now that we're upset, we're going to go someplace else. But the thing is, who is feeding your spirit? You have to find somebody to feed your spirit. And when there's nobody to feed your spirit, you must learn to feed your own spirit. See, I don't know if y'all heard that last one. When there's nobody to feed your spirit, you must learn to feed your own spirit. You must learn to give your spirit the things that it needs to rejuvenate yourself. You got to learn how to recharge your own battery. You got to learn to plug yourself into the wall. You got to learn to plug yourself up to the outlet. You got to get yourself in a space that when you're feeling down, when you're spiritually down, when your spirit is feeling different, when you can't reach out to the person that you need, when you're looking for that person to make you feel better, that you give yourself just that much more self-love and know that it's going to be all right and that God is going to take care of you. Because guess what? The therapist has working hours. The counselor has working hours. Why doesn't the priest have working hours? The priest got working hours. You know, the priest has his own life too. Men of God have their own life too. I'm here to let you know. They go through some of the emotions that you go through. Maybe not on the same level, but they go through some of the emotions that you go through, and they had to change their lives around. They made some of your mistakes. They went through the things you went through. They were children too. They thought about having fun also. The most successful people in life are the most disciplined people. They understood when to step away. You ever have an instance where you're trying to be serious and the other person is joking? You probably needed to tell them, I'm being serious right now. Don't you know, in order to be a priest, you have to be a little bit more serious about God than the average person. If you want to be a leader, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to fall in that realm of teaching the Most High God's people, you have to be a little bit more serious than everybody else. Or guess what? People are not going to take you seriously. people are not going to take you seriously. We have to know that the priest, he's doing things in such a way that he's trying to balance lives while he's trying to balance his own. And we don't like that. He's not just trying to balance one life. He's trying to balance multiple people's lives. It's not that he just focuses on you, what you're telling him you want. And you know, the selfish side of us, we want to glean knowledge from individuals. But there's a reality. There is a reality, brothers and sisters, that he is juggling the intimate information of other souls. And at the same time, he's thinking about what's going on in his own house. He's thinking about what his children are going through. He's thinking about what his wife or wives are going through. He's thinking about his obligation to God and the service of the tent of meeting. That's why you need multiple priests. You can't put all of that in one man. You put all of that in one man, please, his beard will be gray by the time he turns 27. Whole thing, he'll be like, yep. I remember when his beard was black. But now, yeah, the people got him. They weighed heavy on him. He starts losing hair. He starts looking stressed out. He starts looking annoyed in his face. I won't go as far as to say a nervous breakdown of Koyak here. You're going to have people who don't want to be priests. But what I will say is he will be teetering on the edge of exhaustion. So as I say that, I want us to get into our third subtopic as he teeters on the edge of exhaustion. And our third subtopic is, are we setting unrealistic expectations? Be honest with yourself, brothers and sisters. Are we setting unrealistic expectations? And if we are, how do we change that mindset? Do we put too much on each other? See, I say all the time, unrealistic expectations. I should get all the women should be ready to applaud right now. You know when your husband wants you to be a superwoman, wants you to be a superwoman? He wants you to be his personal maid. He wants you to be his personal doctor. He wants you to be his personal chef. You should be waiting on him hand and foot. You should know where all his stuff is around the house. You should have the kids tucked in and, tight if you're doing homework with them and all those other different things. And as women, when your husband pushes you through all of that, you get frustrated. You get angry. You get upset. You're like, he's asking me to do too much, and I need him to help me. I need him to be a husband to me because I'm supposed to be a helpmeet. It's not that I'm supposed to be bearing all of the responsibility. Well, sisters, when you say that about your husband, do you have that same outlook when it comes to your priest? Do you have that same outlook when it comes to the prophet? Do you have that same outlook when it comes to the men of God? Do you have that same outlook when it comes to your husband? I know I want him to take care of me, but I never think what I need to do to take care of him. I'm going to say it again because I don't think we get it. I don't think we allow it to resonate in our mind. I know I want him to take care of me, but I don't think what I need to do to take care of him. Because guess what? intimate relations, that don't always cut it, right? And so you know what you want to do as a person, but do you know what they want to do as a person? Or do you just shrug your shoulders and move on with it? Do you accept the fact that sometimes people are learning on the job? We are so critical of one another. Yet, when it comes time to training one another, what do we say? That's not my job. It's not my job, Moray. It's somebody's job, but that's not my job. So wait a minute. How is it your job to critique, but not your job to train? What are we doing right now? It's unrealistic to expect the priest to do all of these things at the drop of a dime, and then when he messes up, say he's a no good priest. It don't make sense, y'all. I'm telling y'all, it does not make sense. We talk about a bad father. We talk about a bad mother. What's a bad father? What's a bad mother? I'm not saying there's not bad fathers and bad mothers out there. I'm not saying there's not bad priests out there. There's good priests and there's bad priests. But do priests have the right to make mistakes? And I get it. It's not fair. They can't constantly make mistakes. But do they have the right to make a mistake? Now, I know earlier we were talking about Nadab and Abihu. They made the wrong mistake. We talked before about Uzzah touching the ark. He made a mistake. We talk about Hophni and Pinchas, the way they dealt with the offerings, and sleeping with the women who gathered at the place of worship. You can't afford to make those mistakes. But are people going to make mistakes? And I'm telling you that, as Beautiful Forever just stated it, yes, they are only human. They're only human. And so when we talk about these things and when we understand about the expectations, it's the expectations of the priest. The priest, the prophet, and the men of God. What their role is, what our expectations are, and if we have realistic expectations of what they should be doing, we need to understand that the best thing that we can do is to support our priesthood. We are people who have to get back to culture. We are people who have to get back to the ways of the nation of Israel. We never lacked a priest, even when we thought we didn't have a priesthood. We never lacked a priest. We never, ever lacked a Levitical priesthood. We never found ourselves in a space that when we saw things, we didn't think to seek out our priests. The thing is that we allowed our priests to no longer be priests. That's what the issue is. Shabbat Shalom, my brother Hasidia. Good to see you, my brother. I'm telling you that we allowed our priests to do things in such a way that when we looked at everything happening and we saw everything happening, and we saw how we wanted to deal with God, we didn't want the priest to be a priest. We don't want the prophet to prophesy. We don't want the priest to preach. We just wanted to let everybody do what they wanted to do. And so the expectation became lower and lower. And as the expectation became lower and lower, by the time we got back to God, we put the expectation through the roof. We didn't understand how to find the middle ground. So I say to my brother Preach Yeye in his comment, he said, I was a priest before I knew my identity. And believe me, I have made many mistakes and still do. But it's what you do to correct them. On point. I needed that to resonate. On point. Priest is going to make mistakes. He's going to do some things. What are you going to do? Get rid of the whole priesthood? Burn them all in fire. I'm telling you that for us, in order for us to get better, we need to learn to support one another in such a way that we will get better. So our priest, our prophet, our men of God, the roles that they play are that they have to be that much better. If the average Israelite is here, he has to be here. The king has to be here. Let me say that one more time. If the average Israelite is here, the priests have to be here, and the king has to be here. The king is our leader. The priests are the ones bringing us closer to God. The prophets always stay sprinkled in there. The prophets are always somewhere around. The ministers of God are always somewhere around. They're always telling people what to do in the name of God. And so as we promote these things, brothers and sisters, we have to understand very good, there will always be protocol. It maintains order. We must understand the order and the culture of the children of Israel. I thank God for introducing me to men like Cohen Levy, who called himself a priest and lived as a priest, right? And when I seen him, he was always talking about God, always. And so we need men like Cohen Mikael, who are living as priests. That word Kohen, meaning priest. We need ministers, that Hebrew word mesharet, minister, mesharet, minister. We need them. We need men like them. And we also need to understand reasonable expectations. Let them go through their learning curve and allow them to get better before you, so we collectively can get better before God. Hoping and praying that your brothers and sisters got something out of what I said, and that the Most High God found these words acceptable to be spoken before his people. As I bid you all on the tongue of our forefathers, Shabbat Shalom Lakem. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to ask that you join us, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'm going to try to put up the banner here. I think the banner is a little bit smaller, but if you would like to join ShomrayHabreet, brothers and sisters, your spiritual journey awaits. Join us tomorrow morning, March 12th, 2022 at 9 a.m. for our Sabbath service as we discuss the Word of God. Your weekly lesson of inspiration will be Levitical protocol based on the book of Leviticus as we open up the book, beginning in chapter 1, verse 1, and concluding in chapter 5, verse 26, which will be presented by myself, ShomrayHabreet. You can visit us in person at 1568 Prospect Place, Brooklyn, New York, 11233, or you can visit us via live stream by Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Simply search ShomrayHabreet or ShomrayHabreet, and you'll be able to find us. Also, you can find us at our website, ShomrayHabreet.com. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. We will join in with all of you tomorrow morning. If you have not already, please like the channel. Please subscribe. Please like the broadcast. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can see when we are coming on, and tell a friend if you think they would be interested in what we are doing. May the Most High God continue to bless you all. Lala Tovlakem.